Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Global Energy Forum session on Europe's path from energy crisis to lasting resilience. A big question for this morning, and I'm delighted to be joined by two ministers of two countries in Europe that are key players in answering that major challenge for the continent, for the European Union more broadly. We have with us His Excellency Michael Damianos, Minister of Energy, Commerce and Industry for the Republic of Cyprus. A warm welcome.
Thank you.
And, of course, His Excellency Stavros Papastavrou, Minister of the Environment and Energy for the Hellenic Republic. A warm welcome to both of you. And I want to dive right in because we have big issues to address and little time to do so, and look forward to the conversation with you. When we look at this challenge of Europe's path from successive crisis to lasting resilience, we've seen since especially 2022, Europe facing a series of severe shocks to its energy system, first from Russia's invasion of Ukraine, more recently the conflict with Iran, the fallout, the disruptions we've seen from that. That has added to longer-term challenges to European energy systems and competitiveness. So if I can turn to you, Minister Damianos, first, and if you could give us a little bit of a state of play in how you see the European debate on and progress on addressing these successive shocks. Where are we in moving towards resilience and away from the immediate crisis?
First of all, good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here. As Cyprus is holding the presidency of the Council of the European Union for this current 6 months until the end of June, we had a lot to do and a lot to discuss with respect to the position, especially as far as external shocks are concerned. You're absolutely right. It started with Russia in 2022. We had the shock through the war in the Middle East in February, which I think we managed to let's say not control but adapt to a bit quicker than we did in 2022. I think the general idea, and this is what we're trying to do as the European Union, is to make sure that we're more resilient, and becoming more resilient means being a bit more diversified. So Europe needs to progress with, so for example, the grids package. We need to increase the stability of our infrastructure, proceed with furthering LNG terminals. We do have renewables, we do have targets. With renewables, it currently means that you can get your own energy within the country rather than being reliant on external sources. But most importantly, I would say you need to develop your own internal sources of energy, and it can only include fossil fuels as well. So, for example, we do have substantial quantities in the Cypriot EZ. Greece has its own quantities in its own exclusive economic zone. So the idea is to try and get as much out as we can in terms of that diversification. And obviously also consider and expand the relationship with reliable partners like the US, so we can rely on each other and not be reliant on a single source, which has been the case in 2022. Not any longer, but it takes time to make sure that you really are there. So infrastructure, renewables, fossil fuels within Europe, but also reliable partners in the area and the other side of the Atlantic to make sure that we are able to adapt to external shocks in a much shorter time period than we used to up to now.
We'll come to a number of those issues you've laid out, but I want to ask Minister Papastavrou.
Can I make a comment on the previous answer?
Can I
take the question
comment? But also, you've spoken about Greece pursuing a policy of energy realism. And I want to ask you, on this path that Europe is moving on towards greater resilience, where are we? What progress has been made Are you seeing a shift towards greater energy realism when it comes to Europe as a whole? We'll come to country and regional issues in the next round.
The comment I want to make, and I will answer right away on your question, is that we learned the hard way, both with the invasion of Ukraine and now with the Straits of Hormuz, about the systemic risk of weaponizing energy. So whether it is from Russia or whether it's from Iran or from whatever, any country, weaponizing energy is a systemic risk for Europe, and Europe should be united addressing this and not accepting to work with this. So the weaponizing of energy is something that affects global security and regional security, and we should be very much aware of it. Now, on your question, actually it has been the Prime Minister who has been speaking about energy realism with his article in the Financial Times, and I think has been a leading voice on that in the European Council. I think we realized all that we put a goal of clean energy, which is a noble goal, but we turned that a bit on morality. So when you were speaking to Brussels about a 100 million project of hydrocarbons, you were considered to be a villain. If that was blue hydrogen, you were a saint. We need to be technologically neutral. Europe needs to have energy security. Energy security is national security. So as Michael said, we need to develop all the domestic resources that Europe has in order to be able to be to have our energy independence. And in that sense, we need to be cost efficient and cost effective. Europe discussed about putting a tax, a carbon tax on shipping, on global shipping, where global shipping contributes less than 3% on the global emissions and transfer more than 90% of the global trade. That's not a good start. I think this is catching up. I think most of the European leaders have followed up that we put a goal that did not take into account the competitiveness of the economy, the social cohesion, and now this translates not on a change, of course, but of a recalibration of the speed, in a way. And compared to the crisis of 2022, where it took like 12 to 14 months for the EU to realize that there was a problem and we need to act together, now, as Michael indicated, things have moved a lot faster. So I think energy realism, which has started by Prime Minister Mitsotakis, now becomes, I think, a common sense approach for the majority of the European countries.
So greater recalibration and speed, you're saying. I want to come to the East Med as your region and its specific role in advancing European energy security. Obviously, the region has a strategic role to play here. Energy security, it's home to significant offshore gas reserves. It plays a role in critical interconnection infrastructure linking Europe, Africa, the Middle East. So I'd be interested, Minister Damianos, in what you believe are the key drivers differentiating the region from the rest of Europe, and also how you really leverage that unique position your countries, but also the region more broadly is in supporting European energy security.
So I'll talk about Cyprus, but I'm sure that Stavros will add later on. But I think we're more or less on the same boat. The Eastern Mediterranean it's a volatile region geopolitically. It has always been, but Cyprus is, let's say, in the Western camp. It's an EU country, rule of law, and these days, quite a bit of hydrocarbons in our own EZ. We have 20 TCF in our exclusive economic zone. Blocks awarded to a small block to Eni and Total, but substantial gas quantities to a consortium led by Chevron and another consortium led by ExxonMobil. So we're talking about oil majors being active in the Cypriot EEZ. We have the 3+1 partnership, which is Cyprus, Greece, Israel, I would say reliable partners with the support of the US. So we're talking about reliable partners in a volatile area that need to do what we're meant to be doing with the support of the US. And it's not just getting hydrocarbons out, because with hydrocarbons we can support the area, we can support Europe, we can support globally. It's a lot of gas. I mean, if the gas we have in our EZ, we had to use it for Cyprus, it would have been enough for 3,000 or 4,000 years. So we're going to be selling in the next few years. But generally, other than that, we do need the electrical interconnection through Greece, through Cyprus, leading to Israel is going to be a first step. I mean, the GSI is going to be a first step with respect to connecting Cyprus and Israel with the grid in Europe. Exactly. And then there's more to come with the, let's say, with the India-Middle East corridor. So it's a first step that we need to materialize. And in order to do that, we definitely need European support. But European support, we're part of Europe. It is fundamental to have the US assistance with respect to energy security and the involvement of, for now, 2 big oil majors in our own EZ and generally in the area, because they are active in Israel, Egypt, and Greece. It's actually very important in making sure that we're going to have this security of supply, because it's more important not only for the area, but I think globally in terms of supplying energy to Europe and even more than that.
We'll come to 3+1 in a little bit, but Minister, I want to ask you, Greece has really leaned into this regional hub role. How are you looking at the next few years in terms of Greece's role in the wider region and in support of European energy security?
Yeah, I think, if I may speak in terms of the new geometry of energy, I think Greece and Cyprus are becoming the epicenter, the strategic node of this new geometry. And when I say geometry of energy, I mean creating vertical access, or the vertical corridor, which is, after decades from gas flowing from the east to the west, now we have a vertical corridor which brings US LNG into Greece and through the infrastructure through Bulgaria, Romania, reaching Moldova and Ukraine. Then we are creating a strategic triangle, as Michael said, with Israel, which is a quadrilateral with the US. We have a circle of cooperation with the East Med Gas Forum. We should not underestimate this important framework. Yesterday, or the day before, actually, time flies, together with Michael, we sat on the table with representatives of the government from Israel and Palestine. After 3 years, energy is becoming a bridge for the region. And we have, after the vertical axis and the triangle, we also have the diagonal line from the IMEC. So the East Med is actually the center of this new geometry. And through the interconnection of Greece, the electric interconnection through Greece, Cyprus, Israel, through Greggy, Egypt, Greece, this area becomes the epicenter for the new European architecture. More and more, the countries of the region realize that we stand to gain more by working together than doing it on our own. And 2 weeks ago, in Athens, we had the Minister of Energy from North Macedonia and Serbia, where they expressed their interest to have an extended vertical corridor. So I think these are becoming arteries of trade and prosperity for the region, and this is, I think, a very promising development for the region.
Let me follow up on both. East Med Gas Forum on Monday. Tomorrow you'll be meeting U.S. Secretary for Energy Chris Wright in Houston for the 3+1 meeting that you already mentioned. When you both go back to Athens and Nicosia at the end of the week, what do you hope in terms of specific deliverables to take back with you back home from these meetings and this week in the United States?
Let me first say that both the gas forum and the 3+1 meetings are the opportunity for us to explain exactly what our strategy is for the next few years in terms of energy in the area, both in terms of exploration and in terms of electricity interconnections and the like. So it's putting out the message of what we're trying to do and ensuring that our partners are there to support. So what we're trying to get into Cyprus would be that we do have the support of our partners being Greece and Israel obviously with the United States in making sure that we're going to have this assistance in putting Cyprus on the energy map. Now that we will start our own production, because we will have first gas in Cyprus in the first 6 months of 28 from a small block. Then we're going to have the bigger block, which is a Chevron block, in 2030, 2031. And then 2033, we're looking at substantial quantities from the Exxon blocks. So it's to have, let's say, the political support to make sure that the geopolitics in the area are not going to affect this. Making sure that we have the support with respect to the interconnections and that our partners are on the same side with respect to the GSI, IMEC, and how important it is for the area. So it's to strengthen ties and go back home and say, okay, what we're planning to do is supported by our partners, and let's move with it.
Minister, similar question to you.
Well, I hope that we will put some meat on the bone, meaning that until now the 3+1 is a very important intergovernmental initiative which is concentrating on energy. Hopefully we can create something which is more permanent, and therefore we are looking forward to commencing a cooperation with the East Med Energy Center in the Baker Institute in Rice University, which will allow the 4 countries to have a permanent center of geopolitics cooperation. And Baker Institute being a leading school on the geopolitics of energy. And I think this has a broader importance for us, because the 3+1 initiative and the EMGF are initiatives that are not excluding anyone. What they're excluding is the weaponization of energy. What they're including is a framework of cooperation which is based on trust, which is based on a win-win approach, which is based on respect of common rules, of good business practice, which does not accept unilateralism, threat of violence. This is a whole frame of thinking, of culture of cooperation that can bring the East Med to the surface of the global energy scene. But for this, we need to work together based on the commercial rules, based on Lex Mercatoria, based on how the big oil companies have been working, and create a frame of cooperation and stability. So I think this is an important step, the commencement of the Energy Center in Houston, which will allow to have a permanent base for our cooperation.
Let me turn to the EU side of things. You already mentioned Cyprus is holding the rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union. You're setting the agenda, you're navigating, producing consensus among member states and the Council on energy, and especially energy security and affordable prices. Been a priority for the presidency. With about 3 weeks to go in your presidency before Ireland takes over, what are your greatest achievements, you think, on the energy front, and what are you going to push on that home stretch on the EU agenda?
So let me just first say that our motto as a super presidency was an autonomous union open to the world. So the idea was, especially in energy, to be more resilient and diversify. Part of the resilience has to do with updating the grids. We have the grids package regulation and EU regulation that it's extremely important that we are hoping to close, to have a general approach by the end of June. We'll have an energy council in Luxembourg as my last council holding the presidency at the end of June. So we're hoping to close that, it is important for this to go through for a number of reasons. Other things I think we've managed to put through is to try and get out of this crisis a bit quicker than in the past. I think there was a general consensus between energy ministers of where we're trying to get at. It will take years to go exactly to the direction that we're hoping to go. But I think, for example, with the grids package, it's a very good start to continue. But generally, I think the overall idea is that we have kind of passed on the message that renewables are one thing. We do have hydrocarbons within Europe, so we need to be part of that. And at least as far as Cyprus is concerned, we're definitely able to help with that. As I said, we're going to have first gas in 2028 from a block in Cyprus that's going to be liquefied in Egypt for sale in the European market, which is part of assisting in the diversification of the energy security and the energy market in the EU. As I said, Cyprus is a small country, but with what we have, we can certainly support that.
Minister, Greece will take over the EU presidency in the second half of 2027.
Sure.
That seems like half an eternity at current policy and news cycles. But what can you tell us about the energy agenda for your presidency in a year's time?
Well, first we have Ireland and then Lithuania, so I could not be specific on projects, but what I can tell you is what will be the guidelines. And the guidelines are the energy realism and pragmatism that we've been discussing here as well. I mean, we would like, right now, Europe does not have a true internal European energy market. There are 27 fragmented energy markets. So what we would be hoping is, first of all, to continue the good work that Cyprus has been doing on the grid package, because this is an issue that, because of the 27 different approaches, there are many different reactions especially from the north. So we definitely need to enhance the infrastructure, the energy infrastructure. Countries that are self-sufficient on energy need to be willing to share this surplus that they have and create a true European. At the same time, we need to be more pragmatic about the hydrocarbon. And Cyprus, with Aphrodite, and Romania has Neptune, which will start producing also in 27, 28. Maybe Greece. Greece has as well, starting after more than half a century, will have exploratory drilling by ExxonMobil in the Ionian, and seismic survey by Chevron below Crete. So we need to have a balanced energy mix, which will exclude nothing, technologically neutral, which will take into account nuclear, which we have countries that are very advanced on that, but we need to see the progress that the US is doing. I heard what Chris Wright said here in this podium yesterday about being on a trial, the new SMRs. And at the same time, we will be focusing a lot on the electricity needs of AI, because we follow a lot what the US has been bringing to our attention. I think Secretary Burgum has been saying that the race on the AI resembles a lot the arms race of the 80s, and whichever party wins, they will in a way dictate and control the developments, and Europe should not face the consequences of the countries that did not participate in the Industrial Revolution. So for AI, we need a lot of energy, and that is something that we will be focusing on.
That's maybe a good segue to wrapping this up with a lightning round, and that is on AI. What does Europe need to get right, the one or two things over the next, let's say, 2 years?
With respect to AI?
To AI and the energy dimension.
Well, there is really a lot to do with respect to, let's say, on the technology front, on things that we're meant to be doing. We have a number of infrastructure projects that we need to be finalizing, and a lot of it would need to be dealt with on the technology side. So AI, it's in the forefront. Not exactly something that is under my, let's say, mandate, but it's something that we definitely need to be doing with the corresponding, let's say, partners in Cyprus and with our global partners, because these infrastructure projects, especially the one we're trying to finalize in an LNG plant, needs quite a bit of support on that front. So it's things that we're trying to solve. But if I may add something towards the end, because I think we're running out of time. I just wanted to point out, because we have mentioned about hydrocarbons, we mentioned about electricity interconnections, it's all related to energy security, and we really are trying to pass on the message that the US factor, including the oil majors in Cyprus, who are spending about $10 billion in the next few years to proceed with the hydrocarbons exploration, it's extremely important, and the assistance and involvement of the US factor and more US companies in Cyprus is actually fundamental to the energy security, not just of Cyprus, but of the overall region. And I really wanted to say this on this panel, because it's actually extremely important in helping us do what we're planning to do.
Any concluding thoughts on the US role?
Three words: more energy, more interconnections, and closer cooperation with the US. I think that energy is a bridge for the transatlantic cooperation. We see that on the phasing out the Russian gas. We see that with AI, and hopefully that we'll continue to see more and more cooperation between Europe and the US.
That's a good point to end on. Thank you, Minister Damianos. Thank you, Minister Papastavrou. We hope to continue that conversation here at the Global Energy Forum at the Atlantic Council, and look forward to having you back. And good luck to our Global Energy Center team in continuing this program.
Thank you.
Thank you.